The payroll tax that we're discussing here today fails to help millions of Americans during this pandemic. Unemployed workers and retirees don't pay payroll tax, so a deferral doesn't help. So the focus on the deferral is really ignoring and denying and being almost gleeful about the president's attempt to get rid of payroll tax entirely. Our chairman, the ranking member, Brady, has already introduced a bill to forgive the amounts deferred by Trump's memo. So you defer those payments, and what are you left with in the budget since you took it from the general fund? And I think that's a legitimate question. I think it's a very legitimate question. We see this as the first step to begin the funding. I mean, that's the natural consequence. That is not maybe how you're intending this plan to work, but that's I believe, a consequence. You may not have attempted in the votes to change the Affordable Care Act, whether you were talking about obligations and responsibilities, whether you were talking about subsidies, but that's the end result, and you need to look at it. So we would end Social Security as we know it, all the actuaries say this, by 2023. So we may not have attended that, but I think that that's going to, the numbers look like this is what's going to happen. Now, again, we all agree now that this is not a handout, Social Security, it's an earned benefit, and we pay into this insurance. So most major businesses that I've read about have refused to implement the deferral. Now you got another problem. So according to the Chamber of Commerce, quote unquote, not only is the payroll memo surrounded by uncertainty as to its application and implementation, but it also creates a substantial tax liability for employees at the end of the deferral period. The gig is up then. The largest employer opting into this failed experiment is the federal government. Look, your side is on record in support of this plan, but in the beginning you were not. You saw very specifically what the hazards would be if you went through with this deferral. And you pushed back what the president was trying to get through, if you remember. This was a last-minute entry into the discussion and the debate to find some money. And I think this is going to produce grievous harm to 96% of Americans who say that Social Security is important to them. Now, if you make less than $4,000 on a biweekly basis, employees are going to be affected. But few businesses are expected to anticipate, as I said before, in the deferral, in part because of the administrative burdens, but also because it will result in their employees receiving less in take-home pay in the first few months of 2021, as the payroll taxes deferred come due. Social Security is financed by a payroll tax contribution. Employers and employees each pay 6.2% of taxable wages up to the taxable maximum of $137,700, and self-employed pay 12.4%. The president deferral of the payroll tax is the first step to the funding. And I have a question. Do I have the time to question, Mr. Chairman?
Ask the question, and we'll give the person time to answer.
Yeah, my question is this. to Ms. Altman. We know that the President's executive action to allow deferral of payroll tax payments will provide little to no near-term economic stimulus. We saw this in the tax cuts of 2017, proof positive, data bears it out. Wouldn't economic impact payments be a more efficient way to provide direct assistance, Ms. Altman?
Absolutely. There is no question about that.
We will, because of the time constraints, what we're going to have to do is ask you to submit that